Look at this thing. Kind of looks like a creme brulee on steroids, but it's not. It's the ultimate quiche. 30% cheese, perfect custard, crust, edge-to-edge flakiness. Ultimate quiche. Let's show you how to make it. Before we dive into the ultimate quiche, let's revisit regular quiche. This is the best grocery store in Seattle, and this is the best they can do. Ooh, just looks sad already. This just goes back to, I feel like most quiche is like a catch-all for like, throw some stuff in a pan on a crust and dump egg on it. I can't even tell where the crust starts and the custard begins. Not into that. And you know, we're not just making a quiche, we're gonna learn a lot of things along the way that you can take to other places in the kitchen, you know? I'm sure a lot of tech bros that have brunch meetings order this and are very happy with it. I didn't wanna just buy a quiche and compare to the store-bought quiche. Last night, I made one. Like, it looks cute, it's got a cute dish. This is basically an attempt at making a great quiche with like not a great technique. Which, if this is good enough for you, go for it. This is great. But I've got a lot of good ingredients on top. This part of the crust is crusty, but none of the other crust is crusty. See when you see the top of a quiche? Oh, it looks so done and the quiche is set, but look at the bottom. And part of that is because of this dish, but a lot of that's just because of the overall technique of the whole thing. See how there's like kind of laminations starting to open up? That would mean I think we did a good job making the crust, but we didn't do a good job baking the crust. See, it just kind of turns into like scrambly mush, which isn't bad, you know, but I want like a silky custard all the way through. So we've got a custard problem to solve. We've got kind of like a flavor toppings problem to solve. And then the big one is the crust. I want a crust that's perfectly crusty. I should hear it and taste it and see it. You'll see flakes the whole way through. It's not just the recipe of the crust, it's not just baking the crust, but it's also this guy, the pan. I'm ready to get into it. First things first, I'm gonna go to chefsteps.com. Just like we have a cookie calculator, bounty calculator, all that good stuff. This parametric has tons of different recipes on it. You can take, say, bread flour here and type 500 grams, hit enter, and it scales everything else. If I look at this recipe here, it's got sugar in it. I'm omitting the sugar, not just because it's a little sweeter, but it's also because sugar is hygroscopic. And if I add the sugar, you know, day 2, day 3, if it's in the fridge or sitting out, it wants to pull on moisture and it will get a little bit soggier and less crispy. No special ingredients in this pie crust: flour, butter, ice water, salt. Boom, let's get to it. This is the section that even if you don't want to make the ultimate quiche, you're going to learn how to make the ultimate pie crust for your cherry, your apple, your pumpkin, your whatever pie. Bread flour, super, super high protein. Saw me use the Chef Steps scaling tool, 500 grams, ta-da! Butter, 374 grams butter. You thought I was gonna use the little piece. Want a little more, there we go. I'm gonna add the salt right now. Really, this will make 2 generous crusts. Ice water standing by. And we're not using a food processor for this one for a couple of reasons. One, they actually do too good a job of chopping it up sometimes, and you have almost too consistent of a chop. I've got lots of fine bits and lots of big bits. If you're like in a huge life hurry, maybe you want to reconsider making pie crust from scratch today. So each of these sheets, you want a little more flour in between. Make a stack, make a stack. Start cutting again. This is kind of like French grandma style. If you have some Sunday that you want to chill out and make pie crust, make a bunch of it, throw it in the freezer, then you got a bunch of pie crust in the freezer. It'll last a long time. So I want to try to keep this cold. Whoop. Look how easy. You know, they call shortening because it's a gluten shortener. So that's what we're doing here. We're basically coating butter flakes with gluten right now. We don't have any like gluten development yet from a practical sense. That's where the water comes in later. You want to keep the butter cold and firm and work it in. How do you know when you're done? If you have like a yellow butter, the flour mixture start to have like a yellow hue to it as well, you'll see. So if the butter pieces don't feel firm, throw it back in the fridge or the freezer even for a few minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go on the scale. Everyone's got their different technique here. Couple little pockets. 223, which is 1 cup exactly, pretty much. Okay, here we go. You gotta mix this quick. You want all that ice water to evenly distribute and not just sit in one place and overhydrate. From here, you basically press it into a rough pile. You're not looking for like a perfect dough here. It starts to come together as we make it. It's not like making bread. You don't want it to be like silky smooth because all these breaks, that's what makes the flakes. The breaks make the flakes. Fold, rotate it, press, press, press. This is just like laminating any dough. Make sure the edges start to come together. Do that one more time. Still see big chunks of butter. That's good. I feel like when Matthew was like retraining me on this, I was under kneading it and under mixing it actually. Okay, I'm gonna do my last little fold and we're done. That's it. So here's what I like to do, because this is 1100. Ka-punk. I'm gonna leave it. You can see nice layers in there. I'm gonna just push it into a disc and chill it. What do you think, Matthew?
That's good.
Look good? Yes. Really don't want these drying out. And then you can squeeze out some of the air and get it even a little bit flatter in the plastic wrap. And we've made our dough. We still need to chill it and roll it. If we roll it right now, it'll shrink and be tough. So we need the water to do its work and develop some more gluten as it sits in the fridge. We also want the gluten to be relaxed, so it's crispy and not like hard. This perfect quiche crust just happens to be a perfect pie crust that you can use for any pie. So we've got our dough. This one I made last night. Pan's about this big, 9 inches, and I've got about 2-inch sides, 2.5-inch sides, which is about that. Boop. I think a lot of people, they end up rolling from this side. When you do that, you end up having a dough like this. Pros do is you actually start from the center and you roll out and you just keep rotating from the center. It's like less stretch on the dough, because as the diameter expands, it's naturally going to thin out anyways. So you don't need to roll the edge of the dough. But first things first, the fun part, soften it up just a little bit. Sometimes I like to flip it over, check on it, make sure I don't have any cracks. Like if I got cracks here, you want to like keep an eye on those. And then you just kind of roll to the edge, and then every once in a while, funny enough, for a perfect, thick, flaky crust, thicker dough can lead to a gummier, thinner crust later. You want the dough thin enough to where it souffles. If it's too thick, it's just gonna set and get gummy and hydrate before it gets enough energy to actually souffle and puff. These are really handy pastry bars. They're actually just sold as metal. Look, you put your rolling pin down and you get nice and even dough. If this dough was fresh and I started rolling it, I would have a lot more retraction. That's enough. It's actually gonna be bigger because I'm gonna go on the inside diameter. That's it. So both these crusts here are the same dough. It's exactly what I just showed you. But look at how this one's flaky and this one's blonde and doughy. That's all about the pan, the baking technique, and everything that comes after making the actual dough. And that's what we're gonna get into next. Why do you think this pan is the perfect quiche pan? Holes, that's one of them. I'm loving the holes in this pan. Dark black too, and thin. Masochistic manufacturer out there sells this as a quiche pan. What's wrong with these people? Here's why I don't like this pan. This is the absolute worst pan you could buy. I know it looks cute, but it's just like the worst performing pan. They're not ever going to make a great crust, okay? They're never gonna work. You just can't get enough heat energy through this pan. So this pan I've been playing with for the last few weeks. Is like my new favorite pan. Black, so it absorbs heat energy. it's got these perforations which help it kind of like, one, get some different texture because these little dibbins kind of like, I don't know what you call them. One is the opposite of the hole, when something fills the hole and then it becomes a thing that was the hole, a negative of the hole. What do you call it? A little nubbin? I don't know. In addition to that, it helps like dump moisture out the sides, right? So if I'm gonna blind bake a crust, moisture can come out this side of the crust basically. Opposite, it's like extreme opposites, these two pans. Thin, thick, and this is just like a really good insulator of heat. This is a super good conductor of heat. And then also, this has no perforations or no holes, so this is gonna let moisture escape really, really, really fast. So this is one of the secret weapons to our ultimate quiche crust. And not just our ultimate quiche crust, but really any quiche or any crust. Some foil. Again, this isn't just about the ultimate quiche, okay? This is about the ultimate pie crust. And so you better pay attention, because when summertime comes and you want to make a cherry pie and your crust is soggy, don't come hollering at me. We're going to blind bake our crust, but not like how you've seen it elsewhere on the internet and other like average recipes. Most folks, I feel like they're baking it just until like, you know, the recipe is like 30 minutes, and they all say 20 to 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever, just because they're trying to get SEO and trying to make you click the recipe because they're trying to make it easy and trying to tell you it only takes 20, 30 minutes to blind bake a crust, but it doesn't. It takes longer. I'm sorry. It takes about 90 minutes, sometimes a little bit more. If you blind bake for 30, 40 minutes, you get that crust. But if you want this crust on the bottom, it takes about 90 minutes. I want this one. Flavor, texture, bland, no texture, doughy. Got my perfect pan. There's no way this can go wrong, right? A little bit of flour, just so it's not like sticking to your fingers. Here's what I like to do. Boom. Quarter. Ta-da. Point in the middle. Ta-da. Da-da. And then you start, instead of like shoving here into the corner, I want to push down from the top. You don't want to push the bottom. You want to push the sides. I want to fill this corner down here. Ta-da, ta-da, da-da, da, 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 do, do, do. That's kind of like the initial little roundy. And then I'm just going to do one more aggressive, like really get it in the corner and push it on the sides too. This pie dough is 82% butter. You don't need grease. Also, this pan, and pretty much all pans, even that porcelain one, is not going to stick unless you underbake it and your custard goes in and the egg proteins bond with the porcelain, and then you got a whole mess and it's annoying. This is it. I'm going to throw this back in the fridge while I talk about what horrible things I'm going to do to this crust next. Look at all these pie crusts. You know when you're blind baking a pie crust, they're like, dump pie weights on it, or add some beans, or whatever, and you put your foil in and add some beans. How much beans do you add? How much pie weight do you add? How much rice, how much salt, whatever. How much is too little, how much is too much? Let's talk about that. I've got my pie crust in my shell, and if I don't put any weight in it, this is what happens. Which maybe for some recipes, you might like that. On this side, I've got so much weight in there that it's just super compressed and dense. This one's kind of perfectly even-ish in between. So how much weight is the right amount of weight for your pie crust when you're blind baking? Basically, I have a 9-inch diameter, half of that's 4.5 inches, and then you do pi r squared, beep, boop, beep, boop, bop. It's like times 3.14 something, that's all I remember. You put it in a calculator, and then you square it, times it by itself. For these guys, it's about 62 square inches. From there, I can say 10 grams per square inch is 620 grams of beans. And thankfully, I have a digital scale. Isn't that pretty cool? So I can put 620 grams of beans or rice or salt in there, and I've got about, what was it again? 10 grams per square inch. Not bad, but you can see even here, like all this is like more pâte brisée doughy. God, that felt like it took a long time. And this one, I think we can guess what this guy's in. It looks like he got into some trouble here. This pie is probably going to be really good for something, I don't know, but not my quiche because there's no room for custard. So where I ended up was about here, and for my quiche with the big wet custard on top, this is actually what I still want. I want all the way even in the center, these dark, caramely. Okay, it's very Beurre Noisette, which is like the roasty, toasty butter flavor you get when it browns, you know? This crust would go like sweet or savory too, easily. We know how much weight we're doing. We're not doing no weight, and we're not doing 25 grams per square inch. We're doing about 10 to 12 grams per square inch of weight for our crust. Here we go, moving on. Okay, we got our pan. It has a dough in it. That's ready to be a crust. I've got my foil that's a little more tender. You want this to be firm, even frozen, before you put your foil in. Otherwise, you just kind of like, and you wreck your dough before you even got to the crust part. So foil goes in, so I want to make sure I get weight in the corners. Goes on the pan. 10 grams per square inch, which in this case is 620 grams of pie weight. Rick can do graphic. That's 10 grams of beans. So this is it. We're ready to bake. Booyah! Finally. One pie, one oven. It's gonna be perfect. And then we're gonna make our custard. This is like $70 worth of Gruyere. Oh, the quiche is ready. The first 30 minutes of our crust has elapsed. Now what we're gonna do is turn it back to another 30 minutes, but lower the temperature and check just in this little oven. See this? See how it's blonde here and dark here? I'm gonna rotate it. And then in another 30 minutes, we're gonna take out our weights and put it back in for another 30 minutes. If you're at home making this, I think you should kind of time it-ish to your crust. So the crust in the oven, it's been in for 30, 40 minutes. It's got another 40 minutes to go. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it. Let's make this custard. Milk, cream, eggs, secret ingredient, Velveeta. 400 grams milk, 120 ml. Look at that cheese. So this ultimate quiche custard is crazy cheesy. Still more, here we go. I'm looking for a glove. Sometimes if you don't have a glove, you can just go like, whoop, do one of this and make a paper glove. And that works fine too. I'm not going to add my Gruyere until this is 167 degrees. Can you imagine like the Swiss cheese government seeing me blend these together? They're like, I'm gonna get me a little bit of white pepper. Cacio e pepe quiche. That's zeroed out. I need 600 grams of eggs. 625 grams. Close enough for this quiche. Campbell loves expensive cheese. I hear crust beeping. It's been 60 minutes and we haven't even finished the crust. A little blonde over here, but that's like this side started, browning sooner in the oven. Weights come out. When you see it starting to get dry blisters, that's when I know it's okay to take the weights out. And we're gonna start getting some more dark crust all the way through. Not done yet. Another 30 minutes. Because just because the recipe says blind bake for 30 minutes, or in this case, 90 minutes, it might not be done all the way. And this is like, if you want flaky, crunchy crust, you want to err on the side of done, not underdone, like overdone. Okay, so this is the milk, cream, white pepper, and this is the beginning of the custard, almost 80 degrees. So, and see that's all gooey. I'm just gonna take it off the heat here for 1 second. I'm gonna buzz the melty Velveeta cheese in there. So I'm gonna turn this way down. I have the rubber spatula in here to make sure I'm not like scorching on the bottom, and it's not at all, it's silky smooth. it's ready to emulsify in some Gruyere. Because normally this would just like split in or be oily in there. So right now I have like a very thin fondue. It's like a cheese bisque or something like that. So I'm gonna turn that down very low, 140 Fahrenheit. Checking to make sure that it's not like scorched on the bottom. I've got this cheesy, milky stuff that's much too hot for eggs. Like if I put one of these in, it's gonna poach and scramble. But if I put all of them in, it's gonna cool down the whole mixture quite quickly. And I'm gonna buzz them out first. That Velveeta is super salty, so I don't add much more salt, but you still add some because the eggs need some salt too. I've been adding like 6 grams. Because this is hot, I want to dump all my egg in there at once. I'm off the heat right now, just meaning the burner's off. So egg goes in. Hey, there's my shells. There we go. So the burner's off and I'm at 50C, which it only needs to go to 70 to set. So it's only got 20 more degrees to go. So the crust is hot, it's nice and dark and even and brown. I'm gonna slide it open, pour the custard in, slide it back, another 30 minutes, and this whole quiche is done. Perfect timing. It's been 90 minutes. See how it's like dark, not just in the center, but like all the way to here, all the way down, and even this corner is getting like brown and dark. This one, you'll look at the center's dark, and it's dark here, but this corner is all blonde. And if you don't go to dark, see how it's all raw here? I wanna make sure that this corner is nice and puffy and souffled and dark too. This is ready for custard. I don't really touch the crust or trim the crust here or anything until it's totally done. Whoa! Oh yeah! Okay, the lowest I'm seeing is 161, and it's done. And you see, it's got a little bit of a puff. It's gonna sink. It's got like a little whoa. It's like a little jiggly. It's like a little bit of egg ocean. Make it all perfect. Pop it out of the mold. Donezo. So you've got this kind of pan line, the lip of the pan. I just start to find it first. There we go. I found it. And I just start slicing all around it. And depending on how much crust you made and how much extra, you'll have a bunch of extra crust to snack on. And there we go. That's it. Ta-da! Ooh. Whoa. Your quiche is done. At first glance, whoa! I don't want to crack it. It's got some weight. Look at this. Ooh. Look at the bottom. The crust, even on the interior, is dark. It looks like a giant, crunchy creme brulee pie. Sounds pretty crusty to me. Moment of truth. Oh, God. I can't look. Bam, 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 bam! Boy! Look at this thing. Ah! It's just like so good and yummy looking. I'm like, it could be anything you want it to be. The crust itself is only 4 ingredients. The custard's only 4 ingredients. It's just letting the technique go their route and using the right tools. And you got to help it out, right? So you can't just dump a wet custard on a wet crust and expect it to be crusty later. It's not going to happen. You got to let it be crusty first. You got to raise it, grow it up, and then it stand on its own 2 feet. Then you can dump custard all over it, which is what we did. And I know some of you are like, why aren't there chunks in the quiche? The cool thing about this ultimate quiche is just silky, perfectly smooth technique all the way across the custard down to the crispy, flaky pie crust, right? And if you want quiche Lorraine, bam, ba, da, bam, serve it with a salad. Bacon, spinach and mushroom, asparagus and goat cheese, we got that too. Try it. Dig in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's creamy.
Yeah. That's the ultimate quiche. Go to chefsteps.com, get the full recipe.